purpose of this event is to discuss mentorship. And this includes how to find and identify mentors and how to be a good mentee. So mentorship is very important in all stages of training in medicine, but particularly in neurosurgery, which is notoriously a different path to pursue. This is a topic that medical students, especially when they're first starting out, often have questions about. So in that light, we are very excited to have a lineup of amazing speakers who will be addressing those questions and providing their experiences in finding mentors as they've pursued neurosurgery. To join our WINS medical student roster by scanning the QR code on the screen. This will add you to our email list, and you're going to get all the good information about our upcoming events, announcements, and other opportunities that we kind of throw. All right, so first I'd like to introduce our amazing senior virtual events co-chair, Megan Bauman. She is a fourth year at Mayo Clinic Alex School of Medicine, and she's going to give us a brief presentation about mentorship in neurosurgery. All right, it's all yours, Megan.
Great, thank you so much. Here, let me just get a little bit more set up. I think I am actually good to go. Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for the introduction, Jennifer, and thank you to everyone else for joining us this evening. Like Jennifer mentioned, I think that mentorship is a really important topic to discuss. And so actually, I think the best way to discuss mentorship is going to be exactly what we're doing, which is talking about it in small breakout rooms, getting to know one another, and just kind of talking about our experiences and how we've been navigating the path through medical school up until this point. With that being said, I do have a short presentation about navigating mentorship in medical school. I won't take too long, just so that we can get on our way to the main event. In terms of disclosures, I have no formal disclosures. However, I do want to note that this is my personal experience and philosophy on mentorship that I'll be sharing. And so with that being said, what I'm sharing here, it might work with you. There might be parts that you might not necessarily work with you. So just adopt whatever you think is right for you from this presentation. In terms of the main takeaways for this event, so I'm first going to be talking about how do you identify mentors, and then I'll focus on how do you be a good mentee to your mentors. But before we get started with that, I just first wanted to talk about why is mentorship important. So going to the dictionary definition of mentorship. So mentorship is the influence, guidance, or direction given by a mentor. And so when we think about neurosurgery and medicine in general, granted, with one caveat that mentorship isn't exclusive, of course, to medicine and neurosurgery, but particularly within this field, when we think about the journey to becoming a neurosurgeon, having to go through medical school where we have to take step examinations, worry about research, ROA rotations, the ERAS process, then getting into neurosurgery residency where it's 7 years long worth of training at a minimum, while trying to take in the full breadth of neurosurgery, and then also too trying to figure out what your career is going to be. And then even as junior and more senior attending neurosurgeons, there's always that opportunity to learn and grow and to have your practice shape and change with how you shape and change as an individual. And so given that this is such a long and difficult pathway, yet very rewarding pathway, it's so important to have these individuals in our lives that can help influence, guide us, and give us direction during, again, this long but ultimately rewarding journey. So starting with the first point, how do we identify mentors? Whenever I've heard people talk about mentors, a lot of times it's always presented as like, this is my mentor, this person who I go and I talk to about all these different topics. And it really almost kind of makes it sound like, you have to find that one person that can fulfill all parts of mentorship and is almost that one size fits all approach. And there's also kind of that unidirectional approach as well, where people it's the concept of I asked them a question and they gave me the answer. But just as mentorship, like as you as an individual, you're more complex than that. There's different assets and of your life that you might have questions about. And so instead of thinking about just identifying that sole individual to ask all of your mentorship questions to, I instead want to challenge you to think about a mentorship network. So again, as you guys have different needs, different mentorship needs, different questions about work, life, identities, this is where having a mentorship of individuals behind you in order to answer those questions is going to be incredibly powerful. In addition, just as you go throughout your career and things in your life change, things in your career change, your goals change, it's important to have this more fluid and dynamic group of individuals to help support you and the changes that you experience. So in terms of starting to form a mentorship network and finding the mentor, you first have to ask yourself, what are you wanting to get out of being mentored? So again, looking at you as the multifaceted, dynamic individual that you are, you have to really be able to take in and appreciate what is important to you to gain out of mentorship, and what sort of questions do you have that you could use a mentor in your life in order to help answer them. And so looking at things like what part of your racial and ethnic identity are important or do you have questions about your cultural identity, thinking about your career goals and your life goals. And then also too, how does your gender identity interface with your prospective career? And then also to work-life balance and other aspects of your life. And so while I've listed these 5 different attributes, of course, there's so many more out there. And so it's really just about thinking what's important to you and what do you have questions about. And so once you've identified these areas where you do want a mentor or you think that there would be value of having a mentor in there, then going out and finding these individuals that can fulfill and answer these questions based off of either shared identities or common experiences. And so I think it's really important to really line up what do you want with a specific individual and making sure that we don't really try to do that one size fits all approach to a mentor. So, for example, finding a mentor who might be a female neurosurgeon where I feel comfortable talking about what does gender identity mean within the field of neurosurgery. Yet, if we don't have the same career goals, that individual might not be the best person to ask about career goals. Whereas another individual would be the person that I go to in terms of asking about my career goals. It's also important to realize as well that when looking at these different aspects of your life, there can be intersectionality between it and intersectionality within the mentors as well, where a single mentor might be able to answer some of those different areas that you've got those questions and provide that guidance that you're looking for. So then once you've been able to figure out why do I want to mentor, what are the different questions, areas I have, where do I need guidance in my life, you want to look for a good mentor. And so, of course, this is going to be very individual dependent, but at least some qualities that I look for in a mentor is someone who, first of all, understands what you need. And so that's what I was just discussing on that last slide. So understanding that I want to go talk to them about cultural identity and that they're willing to discuss that. You also want to find someone who you find to be approachable, because the mentorship relationship isn't going to necessarily work if you aren't able to be open and honest with your mentor and you don't feel comfortable asking them questions. They're also not going to be able to really know what you need out of the relationship if you can't openly talk to them. You also want to find someone who wants you to shine and develop to your full potential. And I really feel like this comes down to kind of 2 main attributes, and that is finding someone who's invested in you, that they're going to take the time to spend mentoring you, to meeting with you and helping guide you through the process. You also want someone who's honest with you. And this one's very important because a lot of times the best lessons that we learn come from that open, honest feedback, even if it can be tough to hear sometimes. So, really finding those people that are in your corner and are willing to sit down and have those maybe difficult conversations with you are some of the most powerful mentors out there, in my opinion. So, from there, you also want to continue to build your network. So before I was talking about finding that domain and then finding the person that aligns with it, but keeping in mind that you can have multiple mentors within a single domain. So having multiple people that you might go talk to life stuff about, or multiple people that you might go talk to your career aspirations about. In addition, peer mentorship is incredibly powerful. So finding someone who's more at a similar level to you, this allows you to bounce ideas off of one another, really grow and learn from each other. It also provides you with potentially more of a safe space to ask questions that you might not feel otherwise comfortable asking to someone who is more senior than you. It's also important to have mentors at different stage as well. So as an early year medical student, maybe asking an upper year medical student about things that they've directly gone through, such as the step examinations or their clerkship schedules. Having someone at the resident level where you can talk to about the match or ask about like, how is resident life as a neurosurgeon? And then also too, if possible, having someone who's more at that senior attending level so that again, you can ask, what is it actually like being a neurosurgeon? Because only they are going to truly be able to give you that accurate, honest feedback with it. One thing that I quickly wanted to mention as well is sponsors and how this actually does differ from mentors. So oftentimes I feel like we're taught or we hear that, potentially mentorship equals sponsorship, but that's actually not the case. So sponsors are going to be individuals who are going to go to bat for you. They're going to advocate for you, whether that's in professional development, career advancement, so on and so forth. But what's important is that while some of your mentors may actually serve as your sponsors, this is not necessarily the job or the role that they're signing up for. They're two separate entities. Similarly, or vice versa, you may have sponsors that might not necessarily be your mentors. And so it's just important to keep this distinction in mind and have these conversations with your mentors whenever you're seeking any sort of sponsorship or potential sponsorship for them. And so now taking all these pieces into account, so looking at people that are going to help you with your professional development, people to address your work life, people to help you with specific skills. And we've talked about peer mentorship. The one thing I also want to mention is the role of mentees, because at some point you might also become a mentor as well and find that you've got mentees that you're helping guide along and how these individuals also incorporate into your own mentorship network. And so as an early medical student, what can you do? Well, just like we talked about, figure out those areas that are important to you to find mentorship and start identifying individuals that you think would serve as good mentors. And as more questions come up, keep seeking out advice from more individuals, growing your map. And as you continue along throughout your journey, this map can grow and it can change based on how your journey and how your career develops and grows itself. So now looking ahead to how to be a good mentee once you develop that mentorship relationship. And so really, I think that this boils down to talk about professionalism. And so this can be a whole separate discussion and topic. However, I just want to go through a couple of points. One of the big points that I think is important to recognize is that these mentors are donating their time for you. They're volunteering their time within their otherwise busy schedules in order to help with your professional development. So I think that what we need to do as mentees is be incredibly respectful of them and their time that they've donated, and also be very professional in our interactions. And so this is going to be in both your actions and your words. And so again, while this list is not inclusive of everything, just some things to think about, making sure that you respond in a timely manner to your mentor, both whenever they email you, text you, communicate, whatever it is. Also making sure that you show up on time to your meetings and that you come prepared. And then ultimately, the activation energy should come from you as the mentee, meaning that you need to be invested and you need to be interested in this relationship. You should come prepared with topics to discuss, questions that you have, different nuanced things to talk about with your mentor so that it's not up to them to form the conversation, but it's more up to you as the mentee. And then making sure that you're reliable. So when a job is asked of you, making sure you do the job, you do it well, and then you also do it in a timely manner. And then also make sure that you're professional with your words. And so this right here that I'm going to show you is an example of what's not considered professional. So just like, a quick, especially when you're introducing yourself, an informal headliner saying, I'm a medical student. Do you have this or that? Thanks. We do not want to present ourselves in this light. We do want to show respect and professionalism to our mentor, especially when we have an ask of them. So when we're introducing ourselves to our mentors, especially for the first time, but then, keeping a level of professionalism as a relationship develops, things to look out for. So making sure you have a proper and formal greeting, especially when you're introducing yourself or asking for it for the first time. This example here that I've got is asking about research, but even when you are asking about mentorship and meeting someone, saying who you are, having your ask at the beginning of our email here so that they don't have to go through and search through the body text for it. This is something that I like to do, but talking about specific interests. So rather than saying, hey, I'm interested in neurosurgery, you're a neurosurgeon, can we talk? But saying instead, I have this specific interest, and I think it's something that you specifically could help with addressing, I think is a really lovely way of saying why you're approaching that particular individual. Asking for the chance to discuss. So never assuming that if you ask for like research or mentorship, for example, they're going to give it to you, but always first testing out the waters to see, is this relationship going to work first of all? And then of course, making sure you thank them and then you sign off in a formal and proper manner. And finally, the last thing I want to bring up is how mentorship is a two-way street. So again, that stereotype where, you have that all-encompassing mentor, you ask them questions and they give you that response is not really how it is. Because just as much as you can learn from the mentor also learns from you as the mentee. And so making sure that you're equally giving back to this mentor relationship. And so how do you do that? It's exactly like how we discussed on the other slide. So making sure you come prepared, making sure that you're invested with questions, things to talk about, asking about their story, about their life, and really showing that genuine investment into the relationship itself. And so now just to wrap up everything here. So what we've talked about, so how do you identify the mentors? So knowing, first of all, what your mentorship needs are, then being able to identify those individuals who can address those needs, and then are also interested in serving as your mentor. And then incorporating all those different areas within the mentorship network in order to grow that pool of individuals who is there to help support you. And in terms of you being a good mentee, again, be professional, be very respectful of the time that your mentors are volunteering to you. And then make sure to always treat mentorship as a two-way street. So making sure that you too also give back to your mentorship relationship. And so with that, I want to thank you so much for listening, and I will hand it back over to Jennifer.